Hello and welcome to another big UC news show. My name is David Dungay. We have some amazing analysts with us this month. Let's do a few rounds of introduction. I have with me today Don Black from Cavell, welcome. Elka
Hello.
Popova, welcome to the show. Craig Durr, welcome. Melody Brew, welcome to the show. Your first time on the show, Mel. It's great to have you here. And last but not least, Mr. John Arnold. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you're well.
Excellent.
So let's dive into some topics for today. We've got some great sort of areas of discussion. I want to start with Copilot, though. There's been a lot of news around the Copilot proposition in the last month or so. Two sort of interesting pieces of news. We've got Copilot with their new GPT-4 upgrade. And this is kind of an extension of the AI assistant, and it's really helping Copilot become a more valuable member of the team. We're now starting to see what's been dubbed the rise of the AI PC as well. So these two things sort of combined are really supercharging the Copilot proposition. But let's go to Craig Durr first. What do you make of this, Craig? And what are we likely to see here from Copilot, and what it's going to do for businesses?
There's a lot that Microsoft's been doing in the background here. Let me start with the Team Copilot, because this is something that's been a pet peeve of mine that I think Microsoft has brilliantly solved for. So if you're not aware, Team Copilot is this idea that a group of coworkers could share a Copilot entity. It's not an individual's Copilot. It's, in the case of this, it would be for this meeting where we all have equal access to it, to the notes, to prompting it to do things. It's a shared resource. Go back to how we were doing meetings before. There was this one challenge, and I thought it was kind of ironic. Some vendors were putting out their Copilot, let's call it, their AI assistant, and giving it the ability to go and attend a meeting on your behalf. How do you feel if you're that person hosting that meeting and David Dungay sends his AI assistant to attend on his behalf and is not able to attend? So sure, you're double booked, but I'm second tier in your importance. And then you can go even more ridiculously. What if Mel sends her AI assistant and David sends his, and we have assistants talking to assistants? There's no meeting taking place. And I think it kind of spells out some of these challenges of having these assistants that are individually focused, working in a group environment. This is where I think this Team Copilot brilliantly solves that. This is a shared resource that everyone has access to. And it kind of changed the paradigm. So now what you have is this idea that you collectively have a place to go with intelligence, with information, and it aligns to some of those other propositions like team chat or team file share, things like that as well too. So I think it was an obvious one now that it's out, and I think it's brilliant. And I hope it's something that we see these other vendors that have these AI assistants in meetings follow as well too. It's a great value proposition.
Well, doesn't it speak to what the role of that assistant really needs to be, right? It's not supposed to be a proxy so you don't have to attend the meeting. And like you say, there'll be no meeting or no one there. That defeats the purpose of having a meeting. So,
Right. It winds up being I forget my rules of parliamentarian. It winds up being the secretary of the organization, right? And it winds up taking the notes and things like that. And I think that is the strength of it. It plays well.
Yeah,
No,
I
David.
think another strength of that is that it really can kind of become a project manager. I think what a team co-pilot actually becomes closer to an AI agent, which people have been talking about, rather than simply a co-pilot. I don't think it's entirely there, but it can perform tasks on your behalf based on certain rules, and can manage tasks, assign tasks, check on the progress of tasks. So it kind of has this project manager role within that team of what it's, kind of this shared for. So I think it's interesting because it's Microsoft. It can be used in Teams. So it's a team Copilot in Teams, but it can also be used in Loop and other things, which helps with project management.
That's the one spot where Microsoft, I think, is kind of jumped the shark and gone overboard. One of our colleagues, Tom Arbuthnot, did a presentation of all the different co-pilots. I think Kevin also did one as well too. There's like 13 of them now. It's becoming this maze that Microsoft unfortunately falls into a complexity of which to use where and when and how. So that's the downside of this. I mean, I think it's going to be a highly used one because it's accessible and it's probably within workflows that people know. But like you said, Mel, is it do I have my Teams Copilot? Is my Teams Copilot? Is it my Copilot that I'm sticking in there? It's going to be confusing.
Yeah, I think eventually all these copilots are going to talk to each other, and they're going to be able to kind of communicate across the different platforms, and they'll become smarter, and it will become less confusing, and they'll be more in the background. But for now, I think both Microsoft and Google have sort of a naming issue with what copilot you're using in where, and that, and how many copilots do you need?
I think it offers pretty big opportunity for partners to play a role in this in the future, though, is helping enterprises, helping SMBs really understand how to use these in the best way possible. What I think at the moment is a lot of enterprises are adopting Copilot and adopting AI in different areas, but haven't really got the knowledge of the best way to use them, the best thing. And to be honest, I don't think everyone knows what the best way is yet. People are hacking together solutions, hacking together ways that does this work. But I think when we speak to partners out there, they're having big challenges around revenue reductions, average revenue average margin reductions as well. This is a great, call it professional services. We want opportunity for them to come in and really engage back with those customers, I think.
Yeah. And, the more autonomous these co-pilots become, they're going to start to be called pilots instead, because they are doing everything, right? They're driving the bus if we're not careful, right? So when you talk about
more the agent theory, is that they will become sort of an agent on your behalf, able to perform the tasks for you, not necessarily just be kind of by your side as a teammate, but there are certain tasks they'll be able to actually go and execute on your behalf.
Perfect. Sentient beings now running all the businesses across the world. That's exactly what we need right now.
That's the singularity. That's the singularity. It's coming.
People get held up a little on that, and like that it's it's taking over the world. I like to look at it as taking over the things that we don't want to do, or the more like repetitive tasks, so that we have time for thinking, for being more human, the more human tasks, right? The things that are innately human, that the collaboration, the things that, they even think about it from a contact center perspective. If you can answer the really easy questions with a bot, it gives agents the opportunity to spend meaningful time solving real problems with customers. So I don't look at it as like, oh, AI is just going to take our jobs and take over. They're just going to take the stuff that people don't want to do and give us the time for more meaningful work. At least that's my hope.
No, I agree. Actually, I heard someone say something and I thought it was great. They said, AI is not going to take your job. The person that uses AI better than you is going to be the one to take your job.
To take your job, exactly.
And that's going to be the way that you have to think about this as a technology.
Exactly.
Absolutely right there. I think Craig, and to Dom's point, it's totally going to be in the hands of people that acquire those skills quickly, right? And if you keep one eye on those job boards, I'm convinced we're going to see those AI kind of facilitator type roles coming through pretty imminently as those businesses look for those skills ongoing. Shall we move on to our next topic? I want to talk about 8x8 and RingCentral. And interestingly, 8x8 came out the other week saying, I think the comment was UCaaS is stodgy, which raised a few eyebrows over here at UC today. But obviously that was sort of termed around their renewed focus, if you like, around their CCaaS and CPaaS propositions. But in the wake of this, we've also seen RingCentral have completed or executed on their biggest deal ever, 40,000 seats, huge deal. So these two things didn't really align to me, but what does our panel think? Dom, do you want to take us up on that one? What are your thoughts on this stodgy UCaaS environment that we all find ourselves in?
I think it's, again, you look at different countries and the stodginess will be at different levels. So obviously in some more mature markets like the US, we already see, especially in the enterprise space, it's becoming very congested. There are emerging a few winners, and what that's doing is driving down the revenue and the price that people are willing to pay for a UCaaS seat. So I can see it slowing down in those markets and becoming harder and harder to win. if you look across Europe, where we do a lot of our focus, there's still huge opportunities out there. We're seeing some mega deals being won out there. But I can understand also where 8x8 are coming from here. They're playing in a space where Microsoft Teams has taken a lot of that from a UCaaS perspective, from a voice perspective. So their integration within there and their announcement that they're going to be on the Operator Connect program, I think really reiterates the point that they see Microsoft as kind of the winner in that space, and they're aligning themselves to that on the UCaaS side. What does that mean for their future prospects? Well, it's the areas where we're still seeing a lot of revenue generation coming from, which is around the contact center, around the CPaaS side. So I can see that strategy paying out for 8x8, which is let's focus on the stuff that's going to generate the most revenue. I mean, we've seen some deals from a team's perspective where it's pennies per user from a UCaaS license. I mean, no one's making money there, but if you can win the contact center bit, that's where you're going to drive revenue. So I can see their argument coming through on that is let's focus on the areas where we're going to generate a lot of revenue, where we're going to be able to differentiate as well, and let's partner with those who are going to be able to deliver the seat. So I think there is two sides to this. Stodgy in some areas, but still huge opportunities out there as well.
But I mean, they made that pivot over a year ago, right? When, at the analyst event in New York, and they made it very clear, this is not going to be their space. Microsoft's too strong. And now with Sam, Wilson, kind of full-time CEO there, they have a pretty clear vision about where they want to be. And they can afford to call UCaaS stodgy because that's not where they're going to make their money. They'll stay relevant where they can. But as you say, the CCaaS and CPaaS are really, that's going to be their focus. And it's the right answer. All these mid-tier vendors, smaller guys, dial pads of the world, they can only get so much penetration in this space now. And to the flip side, I don't think Ring would call this a stodgy space at all, but they're playing at a much higher level. So as you say, Dom, it's not a monolithic market by any stretch.
I think it's a matter of focus and priorities. Stodginess is obviously an arbitrary term, and it is a fact that the voice part of the unified communication space or cloud communication space have become commoditized. We are seeing ARPUs going down, but there's also a lot of untapped opportunity. Based on my calculations, we've only kind of converted, less than a third of all the telephony lines from prem to cloud. Even though some of the markets have matured, as Dom said, there are so many other markets where, opportunities continue to exist. But as you guys pointed out, 8x8 is seeing others win in the voice space, whether that's Ring or even more so Microsoft, perhaps Zoom. They're just making a choice because they also happen to have the strong CCaaS and CPaaS capabilities. So now aligning those with the Microsoft business is where they see the bigger opportunities. And I know, Dom, you mentioned the Operator Connect announcement is perhaps the bigger, the more important kind of news compared to, CPaaS, the CCaaS and CPaaS focus. And I think that's just another confirmation of 8x8, looking for opportunities where they can add value in even in third-party UCaaS environments where the growth opportunities are bigger than their own UCaaS opportunities.
I think one thing just to add on 8x8 is that they're really focused on this XCaaS, their experience as a service. And I think, they kind of led with that. And I do feel like everybody else is sort of following behind on that, where it's the experience that matters. It's not necessarily the channel. And so I think in this case, I do have to sort of say, Sam called UCaaS stodgy, but I think what he was referring to really was more that 8x8 is seen as stodgy UCaaS, not that the industry is stodgy. So they're taking this different approach on the CCaaS and CPaaS with their experience communications as a service, kind of just to differentiate themselves away from being seen as stodgy. But like you said, it is sort of ironic that then, a UCaaS win of over $100 million was, announced just kind of on the heels of that, or actually right before that. So interesting.
Well, hopefully UCaaS is not dead yet. So shall we move on to our next topic? A bit of a sad one. Meta Workplace has shut its operations, or is shutting its operations, I should say. They're still running the platform until the end of 2025, I believe. This is I guess a not overly surprising story, but I do remember, just 4 years ago or so, Workplace came out and said they had over 3 million paid for users on their platform at that point. I don't know what they grew to currently, but this is not an insignificant player in the kind of collaboration space, and there's some really mega deals. There's a big one with BT. For tens of thousands of seats there. So, what do we make of this? Who is the winner? They have cited Workvivo by Zoom as the kind of preferred option for people to migrate over to. But what do we think, Mel? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so Meta has announced that they're sunsetting their workplace solution. They called it out as being just kind of honing in their focus on metaverse and AI. I mean, basically, it's just not a focus for them. I think, they really, even I think now, it's still on their website as like the Facebook for work. So they're getting rid of it. They have named Workvivo as the only, not just the preferred, but the only preferred migration partner for workplace customers. And they're collaborating for just kind of that seamless transition for their customers. So this is a huge win for Workvivo, which is now a Zoom company. Workvivo is really just kind of this centralized place for employee connection, collaboration, communication. And where I think they really do a great job is for frontline workers who may not even have an email address, So they're big customers like Virgin Group, Ryanair, Lululemon, a lot of, sort of retail, again, frontline workers. This is a huge opportunity, I think, for Workvivo. But I also think that the timeline gives a little bit too much room for competitors to step in. I think that, it's great that they're giving this, saying this is our preferred provider, and they're working with them to transition. But like just within, I think, the first 24 hours of the announcement, you could do a quick search on LinkedIn. And not only were competitors, already kind of hawking their services, they were using the same exact graphic that Workvivo had made that kind of showed the migration from Workplace to Workvivo. They were using that exact same graphic from Workplace to whatever, name your company there. So it opens up an opportunity for Teams, Slack, and then all these other smaller providers to jump in. So I think where, Workvivo really needs to do their work here is show the value prop. That's tough to do on something like employee engagement, because how do you kind of quantify that ROI? I think this is a really great time for them to have their customers talking about the platform. They have a really great roadmap. They have really smart people. They have a ton of engagement on the platform. Typically when I think, a bunch of us were just at Zoom Perspectives in New York, and some of the Workvivo people were talking. When they initially roll out a new integration into a company, say like, a Virgin, it's like an 80+% uptake within like a small amount of time. So people are actually really kind of taking on to this, using it, and really enjoying it. So it would be great if there was some way that they could really quantify that ROI, but employee engagement is hard to quantify just in general, right? But I think this is a great opportunity for them. Like you said, David, Workplace has a ton of customers. could this be, another Zoom boom? Like it's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
And it's a great platform.
it's a Trojan horse for Zoom because they made one of the key points they made at Perspectives was I think they said for customers who are using what is it 2 or more applications the take up is much greater,
Yes.
so they know get people started on this. So I think it's a great development for Zoom. It's also really great news for Microsoft if you think about it because Microsoft has LinkedIn. That is the social platform of choice for business. Facebook wants Facebook to be the social platform of choice for business. That's where that workplace play kind of takes them. But now Microsoft doesn't have that LinkedIn competitor now that's going to try to, go head to head because that's exactly what would happen if they were going to stay in this market. But Microsoft can afford to exit spaces like this because, as you say, the ROI on employee engagement is probably pretty questionable. I think it's a pretty soft set of applications, but it resonates with especially digital natives. So if that's what they're going to be comfortable using, that's what drives engagement. And that's what really matters here. And Microsoft can make far more money in other areas. I think you guys mentioned metaverse earlier, right? And then you look at their investments in like with Nuance in the healthcare space. They've got much bigger fish to fry than here, where they don't really have a presence. So, you gotta go where the money is.
I thought it was always interesting with Workplace, though, that the reason I always saw it being successful is, back to Mel's point, was around those frontline workers, and especially from a retail perspective, those who didn't have email addresses. You take a supermarket, but you're able to do scheduling, you're able to put out company-wide or store-wide announcements and things like that. The reason I saw it being successful is because everyone knows how to use Facebook, everyone knows how to use Workplace as a part of that. I think the challenge that it's going to be moving to Workvivo is that platform going to be as easy to use as Facebook was? And I think Zoom has obviously put a huge amount of effort into the UI and user experience of that as well. But can you bring that simplicity that Zoom, I think, was so successful with during the pandemic? Was it works, it's easy to log on, it's easy to do. That's actually quite a nice fit that I can see Workvivo fitting through there. So I can see a nice fit with Zoom and Workvivo on that, and the migration across working well.
Here's the big caveat, though. I mean, we're as you say, frontline. I mean, that's always been the sweet spot for this application. But translation it's for mobile first workers, right? There's no need for this product on a desktop. It is 100% need for this on a mobile device. I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember Zoom making one mention of mobility during Perspectives. And so you'd like to think that if Workvivo is going to win here, they've got to have I think they've got to show that they can really support that mobile environment really well. But I didn't hear anything about that.
Underlying that, which to make sure everyone's clear about who's listening, I know this group does. Workvivo is available both standalone and integrated into the Zoom workplace. So that's an interesting way to help with that migration strategy. It isn't buy into Zoom, it is buy into Workvivo. And I think then there's the stickiness opportunity to pull in Zoom from there as well too. So that does remove some of the possible friction in the the transfer of that. And John, that might help with that mobile first story if the person's looking at it as the standalone application.
And another thing to mention, by the way, I talked to the Workvivo folks at the Zoom event about this. Because they're European based, they know all about GDPR. They're very keen on workplace privacy issues. And I don't know what strength Facebook or Meta had with their platform on that front. But again, bringing in a player who is already kind of native to what that means. But if you're going to have employee engagement, they've got to be able to trust your applications. And again, that I know Zoom talked up the need to show transparency and responsibility and all that with AI. And I think that story is going to have to be told more loudly for Workvivo to say, hey, if you talk, Melanie, about all these other wannabes and competitors trying to run in under the radar and try to grab some business here, well, okay, Workvivo, I think that's one of the talking points they really, I think, need to amplify is that you'll be safe and secure doing this in this environment.
That's a good point. I think also there's a ton of cross-selling opportunity that can happen between Workvivo and Zoom on this. And, even just with AI adoption and learning and everything that goes along with both platforms, where they can bring customers across, as Craig said, they can exist on the Zoom platform or off, but they can kind of integrate those two to do some cross-selling. So I think it's a great opportunity.
And it's a big positive for the end users that everything can be integrated within Workplace and work with the rest of the Zoom applications, because I'm not sure how things worked with the Meta clients, but I imagine the vast majority also had Zoom or Teams or some other collaboration platform. So I don't imagine that they had that sort of integrated experience. And I understand frontliners perhaps didn't live within their desktops, or don't live within their desktops the way we do. But in my opinion, Workvivo is, has that advantage of living within Workplace and integrating with the rest of these Zoom applications. And so does Teams.
It plays right into Zoom's strategy. Let's not forget Zoom is no longer an internet darling with 20 or 30% growth quarter over quarter. They've been averaging about 3%. They're in the game of the small gains right now, and they've talked about that in their strategy, from their calling to call center, and now here's a new area for them to explore, and I'll use the word exploit. They have a great product. So I think the win is great momentum. I don't expect to see a hockey stick of growth necessarily in that, but I do expect to see constant growth because it plays right into what they need to do to address Wall Street concerns and to keep that 3 to 5% quarter over quarter growth.
Sorry, I was going to say not only the growth, but that churn number that was coming up quite a lot as well, of how do you reduce the churn, which I think is one of Zoom's key goals over the next few years, is to control that. So bringing more products, and back to John's point, the more products you can sell of one vendor, the churn rate decreases. So certainly can see that as a big driver for that as well. And I can remember the slide that they put up, which I think, again, was under NDA, of what products did they have 5 years ago, which was video conferencing. And you look at what products they have in their portfolio now, and there's a list of about 10 different ones. You start leveraging those on top of each other more and more. It's a bigger pie to go after.
It certainly is. Let's move on to our final topic of the day, and that is off the back of Avaya's event Engage in Denver. We've seen, it's been a bit of a journey for Avaya over the last couple of years. They're really going through this transformation process. There were lots of announcements to kind of pick up on. Probably the major ones around their relationship with RingCentral and how they're kind of coming closer together, especially around that ACO, Avaya Cloud Office proposition, which is powered by Ring. So there's lots to kind of unpick here. I know some of you were in the room at the event. Should we have a bit of a thoughts and opinions on Avaya's comeback trail and what they brought away from that event and where Avaya's heading? And Mel, do you want to kick us off on that one?
Sure, I'll kick it off. I think most of us, if not all of us, were at the Avaya analyst event. And we all got sort of a sneak peek of what was going to happen in Engage. And I was actually in Denver for Engage and was able to hear, kind of firsthand, just about the partnership expansion with RingCentral. Vlad Shumis was there from RingCentral. We really talked about, Avaya from this whole transition out of restructuring is this choose your journey. And I think they've really kind of held tight to that and delivered on that. And the RingCentral expansion of the partnership is a really good example of that. It's not just the RingCentral, though. I think seeing what happened at Engage, talking to the customers, there's, the Edify acquisition, what they're doing with a bunch of different partners, Affinity, LivePerson. There were some others that we saw at the analyst event. Zoom, actually, the Zoom partnership. It was a really good opportunity, I think, to see how the company is approaching serving the customers, kind of like from from utility to experience. And I think what I saw from, seeing the roadmap, their talent decisions, their partnerships, I see like just a really good momentum with Avaya, including this RingCentral partnership. It was great to see it, not just hear from the executives at the Analyst Summit, but actually talk to customers, not just the ones they put on stage either, the ones I could meet during a, cocktail hour or just roaming around the floor. So it was I thought it was great. And I think that the future of that partnership is kind of, if you look at it, just sort of the future of Avaya, which is, build your journey based on, starting with that on-prem, this is what you need. We're not going to rip that out, but here, we're going to build on top of that and give you the things that you need. Basically, Alan Masarick sort of said at one point, he was like, we're going to like put out a buffet. It's like build on top of this, what we already know is to be solid on-prem voice. And we're going to give you all of the other tools via these partnerships to build exactly what you need to serve your customers. And they're delivering on that.
Yeah. Delivering on their promise of innovation without disruption, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Avaya is just another case, and not too unlike 8x8, where the company's choosing its focus and priorities, and in their case, it's the stodgy, premises based, highly reliable, and secure communications, systems and contact center, and just partnering for everything else. I mean, if you want to look at it as, seeing the proverbial writing on the wall, customers have voted for other collaboration platforms. They have chosen whether that's Zoom or RingCentral's overall cloud communications experience. And Avaya is saying, okay, we'll give you that, and we're going to defend the areas where we're the strongest. Brand-based, robust telephony and contact center.
I think I still look at the Avaya RingCentral deal is it successful? I think on the sides of it, you can look at it and go, well, look, this looks great. That two companies coming together, great story there. You look at the partners, and let's take 1,500 Avaya partners in the US. Under 10% of them are selling RingCentral as well. So the real success that we're going to see through this is not around the partnerships at the vendor level, but the partnerships that actually can drive through their partners and how they can drive that to the end customers as well. I think if you look at a lot of the Avaya partners out there, they've already got UCaaS propositions in their portfolio. So is the Avaya RingCentral partnership at that level actually going to invigorate those partners, the reseller partners, to actually take this to market? And are those end customers actually going to buy that journey of, well, Avaya plus RingCentral together is better, or do we just move to RingCentral because the product is fairly similar and we take out the complexity of one of the other vendors? So I think there's a great story in there, but it's all down to that go-to-market execution, which I still don't think has actually borne as much fruit as it probably could have.
That's a great perspective. The way you described it, I heard it's almost as if the customer and the sales process has fatigue or not as they revisit these conversations. I've got this on-prem solution. I need to add these new features, these new capabilities that I hear. Avaya with this partnership has its story that we can do it with this, we can do it with this other one, we can build out. And so the customer either buys into that, embraces it, like Elka said, innovation without disruption, or they may have a point in time where they say, you know what, maybe a clean slate might be a good thing. There's a little bit, it sounded a little bit like there was plaque building up in the process when potentially, as I heard you explain it that way.
Well, it also kind of makes them sound more like almost like a system integrator than a technology vendor, right? And that takes you down the value chain a little bit. But again, like you said, Elka, they know where their place is in the market. Like they know where they can have success, and they know what they're going up against if they try to go outside those lanes. So they have to be realistic, and they've got so much pressure from shareholders and investors about what they've got to do, and deliver steady results now, not 2 years from now.
They're leaning in on one of their most strategic assets, a huge install base,
Customer
huge,
base.
and they can't discount that. That disruption part is really a pain point that people would want to avoid. So yeah, it's a right strategy. But to Dom's point, it's going to be, I think we're going to see how these play out over time.
I think where maybe I would say that they need to kind of figure out the focus is not entirely focusing on the large enterprise customers and leaving out the sort of either medium size, small, medium, and medium enterprise instead of just the large enterprise. And I talked to the Avaya team about this because I think they concentrate on these very large enterprises that have these really complex kind of use cases where on-prem completely makes sense to them and they're going to stay there. But there are smaller enterprises and businesses that have that same complexity that are ideal customers for them, but they're not focusing there. And I actually heard that from their consultants and sales partners as well. So I think there are probably some opportunities that maybe they're missing out on for growth if they're ignoring that market.
Well, having been at GITEX last year, it seems that the growth opportunity for them is probably outside of North America, where, there's a lot more traditional install base of legacy technology. So there's more room for them to play. But of course, there's a lot of, emerging economies out there that are just going to start straight with cloud. And then, they're not going to get that growth story. But I think there's a plenty out there outside of North America where they seem to be having success. And, you can't ignore our market here, of course, in North America. But the reality is for them is that they're only going to drive so much success in North America in terms of growth. Sustaining what they have is one thing, but the growth that they need to be a viable long-term player, that's a different story.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about Engage for me was, and John, you were there, so you can back up my
Not
story.
Not this year.
No, at GITEX.
GITEX, yes.
So their big theme this year was CX plus EX equals BG. So customer experience plus employee experience equals business growth. Just a year ago, they were saying that they didn't really see employee experience as a top priority. So I'm super happy to see that change. But I thought that was interesting that's a big shift, and it should be.
There's more to life than dial tone.
So I think that's probably a good place to end today's discussion. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for coming along and sharing your insights.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do it again soon.
Yeah, we do have some events coming up as well. Just to get some dates in your diary, Cisco Live is coming up on the 2nd of June. We have Infocom as well on the 8th of June. That's followed by Channel Partners Europe, also in June, the 13th, that one. That's in London. And then at the end of June, we have two big events, Commsverse, the Microsoft Teams focused event, and AWS Summit in Washington, D.C. Get those dates in your diary. We hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll say a quick goodbye to everyone. Dom, thank you very much. Elka, Craig, Melody, and John, thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time.